Well, we're back. Back in the quote-unquote studio, the H4SR Incorporated Towers, the station of anticipation, the center of the tire model universe. However, recently we've had a shift in the center of the tire model universe. And I less of a shift and more of an acknowledgement maybe on the best tire model, the only tire model we're talking about.
Gran Turismo?
And
I mean, that was going to be my guess.
GTA
My
Vice
second
City?
guess was Forza Horizon. So.
Oh, yes, Forza.
it's funny because we knew it. It was
For we were lost, but now we are found. Amen. Praise Dale.
It's like the unstoppable force of a glacier slowly moving. That eventually we would all move on to strictly playing ACC and never talk about iRacing again. So I thought, or Nick thought,
It's the evolution of things.
that we'd bring on someone who knew more about ACC.
About everything.
Is that true? David, do you know more about everything?
No, I mean, I know things about ACC, but
He's a-
Is it
outside of that,
fair to say you know more than Nick? I feel like it's a low bar to clear. Like probably a dachshund could clear the bar.
But Nick does do a lot of coaching on ACC. I'm not sure if he's told you guys that.
Well, see, I was confused too because when I heard that Nick Foster was coaching with you, I was like, oh, that's nice that the other Nick Foster gets some the older fella Nick Foster, and I was like, well, maybe our Nick Foster can coach there someday too.
British touring car driver?
Yeah.
That's who we figured. That's who we figured was coaching.
I initially, when I started the coaching thing, and I had two other coaches come on, Kelvin and Jordan, I was too shy to offer it to Nick. I thought he'd laugh in my face, be like, bruh, I'm not going to coach guys in the simulator.
That was a
Turns out
pretty
he's
good
dead
Nick
keen.
impression.
That was tremendous.
He might have
I'll go
spent some
practice.
time with me.
Yeah.
I'm
Too much.
getting that impression now.
No, Nick thinks very highly of all Sims. I'm certain of that. He tells me that every time we're together. Isn't that true, Nick?
I tell you a lot of things. Nothing positive, obviously, especially about you.
Yeah, if you
Nick
want
just
to.
has all the gear and no idea at the moment. So.
Oh,
Guys, fully kidded.
if you want
He's
to.
fully kidded right here.
If anyone wants to hear Nick absolutely tear into me, last week's episode was he spotted my IMSA race and it does a review, and he pulls no punches, shall we say.
My community is often asked if we could have a Nick Foster voiceover thing for the race control app. What's that app called?
Oh, crew chief?
Crew Chief. We need a Nick Foster Crew Chief mod.
It would all be
My
bleeped out.
community asks me about it all the time.
They'd probably need some therapy after it. I know I had to go to therapy, so I can't imagine that.
Amen.
Oh man.
So I thought we'd talk about ACC. I've been dodging. I've been weaving. I've been trying. Nick, every week, he's like, "Can we talk more ACC?" He asks me that every time. I swear.
We need to talk about God's tire model. Every
Yeah.
week we need to touch base on it. We got to be all inclusive, and you just want to pigeonhole us into like a little pot where there's not enough people to kind of fulfill the needs that you want.
So
Also, as a brief aside, Tom, you changed your hat finally after 4 weeks of abuse. You finally changed hats.
Still doesn't sit straight on his head though.
I told you my ears aren't even. It's like you make fun of a man. It's like making fun of someone's face, Nick. My ears aren't even, and here you are.
That's never stopped him before, just as an FYI.
What a dick. So you were just telling us, David, that that God's tire model has been somehow improved. I don't understand.
Well, yes. So
Is that possible?
in the first version of ACC, the tire only had like one. I'm going back in the history here. It only had one contact point.
Perfect.
So let's say you got onto a sloping curb, it would just be like, it could only tell, is he on tarmac or is he on curb? It couldn't tell, oh, 20% is on curb and 80% is on tarmac. So
Right.
you get
Okay.
these like really bad snaps and like just strange physics when it initially launched. But they knew that. They went past their deadline that they'd been obligated to launch the game, and they just launched it as one sort of point of contact. Then they launched a fix to that. I don't know how much later, which had 5 points, and I think, and I stand to be corrected, I think it's got 8 points of contact now. Anyway, they still had some weird quirks where it took forever to warm up the tire and stuff like that. They've now got a brand new release, which was on Wednesday, version 1.6, which incorporates the new DHE Pirelli tire using quote unquote Pirelli data and everything. And they've added even more physics to the tire model. Like, for example, now if the tire is deflating, it creates an element of drag in the acceleration of the car. But they've also incorporated this tire warming issue because the sidewall of the tire in this new version is stiffer, according to the DHE 2020 tire in real life. But they've also interpreted that as being more difficult to warm up the tire. So one of the things I've felt in the new tire model is that it can take at least 1 or 2 laps to warm up. However, it's not like iRacing where when the tire is not warmed up, you just spin out everywhere, which I've never understood with iRacing. But it seems to be that at least now, like let's just say the best lap time that you could achieve at Barcelona is like a, I don't know, 42. It's going to take 2 or 3 laps before you can even get close to that, which in real life is not the case, by the way. In real life, if your tire is baked and pressured to the right point, usually it's your first flying lap where you have this peak of grip, which we literally call the peak, where you can bang in a lap. And both iRacing and ACC don't have that.
So 2 questions. Yeah. 1, does that mean that Nick's tires have never been warm? And 2, does that, so to understand this journey on the ACC tire model, we've gone from a 11 out of 10 to like a 19 out of 10, and right now we're at an 18 out of 10 with a stiffer sidewall?
No, because in high speed corners, what's interesting though is that they've managed to take the feedback of the drivers and incorporate it into how the tire is behaving, the pro drivers.
Okay.
So the DHE tire this year has much better high speed stability because the sidewall of the tire is not caving in essentially. An example is in Paul Ricard, it used to be like that our maximum apex speed at scene, which is turn 8 or turn 10, high speed right hand at the end of that 2K straight. The apex speed there was between, depending on the car, between 215 to 220. And now, with the new tire, we're going much quicker. We're going 225 to 235.
Wow.
Yeah, just because the sidewall is able to take so much more load at high speed. It's also much quicker at Spa for the same reason. And in the game, it seems to be incorporated as well. Same thing. However, what we've lost is traction, and that's the same. That's also true in real life. We're missing traction with the new tire model, and it seems like in the game that also seems to be the case.
I guess what's probably important to sort of give a bit more context to what Dave's talking about with the DHE is in previous years you've come from DHD and DHD2. It was like a second evolution and then a DHE. So that's happened over 3-4 years basically. And it's all been designed to create longevity in the tire and also help build some stability in the rear, not have as much deg, and basically just create a less sort of a more direct but less unsensitive car. So always with the softer tire model, you'd turn in and there'd be like a delayed reaction, and you'd end up having to like chase a car through a corner. So even for like a gent, for instance, they'd have like 5 or 6 inputs on the way into a corner. And as the sidewall gets stiffer and stiffer, you start to have one input into a corner, and then that's obviously when it starts to become a bit nicer.
Here's actually I
when-
actually a quick question on the Pirelli tire and how they're working on longevity with the spec tire. It's I think mostly because I've been watching so much NASCAR.
Which you should. Praise help, praise Dale.
It's kind of interesting when they're using a spec tire, with like NASCAR, the quote unquote good races, the ideal tire for a lot of those races are like huge fall off. So I'm wondering if like so that Pirelli change is that, I guess like in GT3 racing, would all the drivers and teams say a longer lasting tire is going to be better no matter what? Or are they just trying to find the balance
double stint or triple stint? But it's the same as NASCAR, right? If you run on like a Bristol or like a paved track versus a high aggressive like Texas or Homestead or something like that, then you're going to have natural deg. And Dave will tell you when a track rubbers in like crazy, like Spa does at the 24-hour. Then it's quite strong and you can run on. But longevity is more so just like also to help protect the car and tire as well, because in previous years we've had a lot of tire blowouts with the Pirelli. And you notice also in America and IMSA, like before they went to the Michelin, whatever tire they were on, I think it was a Continental, was quite poor, and they also had a lot of punctures, especially at like Daytona, where you'd run like quite high camber, etc.
Yeah, the camber, especially now, the sidewall is able to cope more, it's a bit more camber. But that's the thing, like in terms of longevity, I don't think a Pirelli has ever existed which could double stint at Spa, because Spa, even when it's rubbered in, is still highly abrasive, and the drop off, you could probably do 66 minutes, as opposed to the 120 that you expected to do, and the drop off after that is multiple seconds per lap. But what they're doing now is they're just trying to get it to last for that 65-minute stint, because at the end of the day, the Pirelli's kind of modeled around what SRO wants for the most part. But
so looking at things like sprint challenge and stuff like that.
Yeah, but what we're seeing here is a much better peak out the box. So the first 3 laps in qualifying, for example, you can get a quicker lap time. Obviously, you need to still know how to use the tire. It's the most difficult thing to explain, because the Pirelli is unlike any other tire that we use. It's so sensitive to sliding on the surface of the tire, and if you overheat the surface and not necessarily the carcass, the tire's gone for quite a few laps. You have to do a massively slow cool down lap just to get back within like half a second of what that peak could be. Whereas like a Michelin, as Nick experienced recently in GT Open and especially at Spa, it doesn't matter how much steering angle you put into that tire, it just gives you more and more and more, keeps responding. It's pretty incredible, where the Pirelli is much more sensitive to slip angle, much more sensitive to any sort of like wheel spin or just generally pushing the tire too hard, where over the surface it overheats. It can become pretty big nightmare to manage. And that's the weird thing, is this new DHE tire, when you come out of slow corners like bus stop chicane or turn 1 at Spa, you get this massive spike in wheel spin, and you think to yourself, this is fair to be better, but now it's accentuating the problem. So like there's a whole bunch of other compromises which has actually cost us lap time. So yes, we're gaining something in high speed, but now we've lost a little bit in slow speed, where we're having to run higher TC settings just to minimize the slip in the tire, to keep that sort of surface temperature in control. It's weird.
And when I think about some of the tracks that the SRO GT series run at, I mean, it's a lot of medium and high speed. So those tracks where it's a little tighter, it's going to be, I think, a bit spicy to watch next season, it sounds like.
No, I mean, we've already been using it this year, the DHE.
Oh, okay.
So,
okay. So this is a new for 2020
it's
tire.
It's a 2020, yeah.
2020.
It's a 2020 tire.
Okay.
I mean, when we tested it, the first time I used it was in Paul Ricard. It was freezing cold, so you don't really have an issue of spiking the surface temperature. And we were blown away by the performance. Also happened that Paul Ricard was resurfaced at the time as well. And oh my God, guys, when a track is resurfaced and it's already kind of baked in, if you will,
Yeah.
the grip that you get is insane. So F1 was at Portimao recently, and they had like an ice rink.
Mhm.
Yes.
But the ELMS, which I raced in, was the following weekend. And when we got there, the grip, I've never felt grip on a surface like that in my life. I'm serious. It
So-
was just insane.
So F1 suffering was really quite good for you.
It set us up perfectly, yeah.
So
Yeah.
it was
Like,
just it was just the rubbering in that needed like a
Yes.
weekend. Okay.
Yeah, I kind of needed like that. Whenever you resurface the track, there's like an oily substance which kind of seeps to the top, which effectively
Right.
needs to be cleaned. And the only way to clean that is by cars going around. That's why in Turkey you saw the F1 cars spinning around and around. You mix oil and water, and they had no chance. Doesn't matter how much downforce you're generating. At the end of the day, if your tire doesn't effectively connect with the surface, you're screwed. So
And that was it made for very cool cell phone cams of people sending out rental cars in the middle of the night to try and rubber in the
That's
track
bizarre,
a little
right?
bit.
It's not going to work with the rental car, but it's fucked up. That they were
On the
doing
bright
that,
side,
honestly.
free laps around the track. Like, go for it. Follow your dreams.
I'm
Exactly. Just don't tell the rental car agency where the car's been. Did Nick tell you what happened when we took a rental car around the Nordschleife?
I can neither confirm nor deny having heard this story, but you're more than welcome to refresh my memory.
Well, I mean, the classic thing, we rented a car to go just to get to the track because we were doing a race there together, which won't tell you that story. But anyway, we'll tell you the rental car story. We had 2 close calls of other cars crashing, and we just missed them. But then, like, I don't know, Nick, a month later?
Yeah,
Not
something
even.
like that.
Yeah, about a month later, Nick gets a message from Sixt or Europe car, something.
Oh no,
that-
I only found out because I got bloody benched in Paul Ricard at the airport, stuck because they wouldn't let me leave the car.
He'd been
I was
banned.
stranded.
He'd been banned from renting cars from Europe car, I think, or Avis. And it's because they have guys at the Nordschleife who take photos of every single car during the tourist laps and send the number plates to the photos of the cars to the rental companies. And if one of their cars is on the track and you're renting it at the time, you're banned. There's no argument. That's it. Nick can no longer rent from that company before.
So you're
again.
saying Nick completely earned it. That's what I'm
Yes.
hearing. Yes.
Yeah.
But it was a good lap.
That's
It
well,
was a
that's
good
good. That's good. I'm glad. I'm
was
glad
a
to
good
hear
lap.
that, Nick.
We were pinned. We passed a Porsche
Yeah, we were pinned.
in like a 1.4 liter. So
You
it's
know,
alright.
I have
That was
Wait,
the
a
highlight of our
1.4 what?
weekend.
Like a Volkswagen Lupo or something?
Yes.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh
we
my
basically
god,
had a
that's
Polo,
amazing.
Yeah.
So
Um,
passing people in Porsches in a Polo, that's very good.
Yeah, there was some moments. That was the highlight of our weekend because after that it went pretty downhill.
So I guess you've briefly touched on race days with Nick, but how did you meet Nick in the first place? I can only imagine the series of tragic circumstances that brought you to that.
Yes.
That's a bit rude.
True. True
Nick-
though.
Nick and I were racing in the Gulf 12 hour, and he was racing at Kessel, which is the team I usually race with. And I had been relegated to another team. And
I replaced him.
yeah, and I was
Oof.
looking at this Aussie guy, and I'm like, who the hell is this guy? Like, what the hell is he doing in my team? Da da da. Hoping to
That's
hell
my
that,
favorite
like, he
chair,
pinned
what
it
the
or
fuck?
hit a wall or something. You know, biggest what the fuck. But you know, we were polite and cordial. Hey, bro, what's happening? Yeah, sweet. How's the car? Yeah, it's all right. Okay, cool. Fuck you. And didn't say
Sounds like
much for
Nick.
the rest of the weekend. And then we were testing like a few months later at Monza, different teams. And Nick, he's going to deny this, but I think he recognized me, and I honestly had to take a memory check. Like, who is this guy? And he's like, "Hey, bro, what's happening?" And then I clicked. I was like, "Oh, this is the cunt from fucking the Gulf 12 hour." So So I was like, well, best I be polite. And I asked him, where he lives. No, he lives in London. What? You live in London? Me too. Let's hang out one time. And he's like, I don't know, bro. I'm super busy at the moment. It's like, geez, that's a bad.
This guy is a couch potato. That was a lie.
And then I don't actually remember the next time we met up and hung out, but that's how it started. It started with tension, competitive racing drivers, essentially.
So what I'm hearing is,
I was a nice guy and
Nick-
said hello, and he wanted to treat me like shit and wanted the worst for me. What a nice.
I
mate.
just
I took me a
struggle
moment
to
remember who he
imagine
was.
Nick being outgoing and otherwise like friendly. It's a lot to take in for me, so I'm definitely gonna need a couple episodes probably to digest.
Nick is just shy, but once you crack through that shell, he's like a marshmallow on the inside.
That's not what I found, I'm afraid.
You might want to
You're
check that
softer
filling
than
again.
no. Yeah. But Nick, I don't even remember what was the next time. I don't even know, but yeah, somehow we managed to make it where we ended up hanging out as bros.
Maybe you're
And
thinking
now
of the
I'm
other
sleeping at
Nick
his house.
Foster. Is that possible?
Yeah, the British touring
Yeah,
car
that's
one.
it.
That's
Yeah.
probably it's got to be.
He
Yes.
hangs out with like a 70-year-old ex-British touring car driver for fun.
Why not?
That's
What's
my
the-
idea of a party, boys.
David, if I could, I'd like to introduce. We have on
Here we
air.
go again.
I'd like to introduce the now fifth member
the show.
of the
Why not?
broadcast. This is a proper correspondent. I'm not saying
Pillay
you're. I'm
reporter.
not saying you're not a proper correspondent.
Our man on the ground who also doesn't attend or watch the races, but
Arnie pie in the sky.
However, I'd like to introduce proper H4SR NASCAR correspondent Maynard. Maynard,
How y'all doing?
hey Maynard. So
How's it going?
we have
Good night, mate.
we have more internationals on the show this week, Maynard.
we're here to broaden your horizons.
You're probably not into that, I understand, but at the same time, I more. I don't know if you know this, Maynard, but more and more road specialists and internationals have been driving NASCAR. In the past couple decades. So I think that it would be good for everyone's horizons to commingle, shall I say?
And you never know when one of these drivers will show up in the Craftsman Truck Series.
Well, you do know NASCAR died with Dale, so you just keeping a dead thing alive, I guess. Is how it goes.
What's Maynard? What's the word on the street? How was the latest NASCAR race on the weekend?
I'm still waiting for that Homestead race. I got it on my VCR. I got it set to record. If NBC's gonna get their stuff together, I figure they're gonna show it tomorrow. But
has it been rain delayed? What's going on?
I can't find any information about it on the J Ski.
Yeah, that's weird.
On the J ski.
David, are you familiar with the J ski?
Oh, but the lingo's killing me already. 3 minutes in.
It's hip.
I know what a VCR though is.
Okay, sure.
It's those remote control cars, right?
Yep.
That you use with your iPhone.
That's the kind of thing that I'd expect Maynard to say.
I wonder if David is actually Maynard's long lost son, and we're just finding out on this pod. So this is basically Maury for race cars.
Is Maynard Jewish?
Oh, if he was, I would know. He'd be in a circle already. I'd be introducing him to you guys.
Ah,
This is true.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting take. David, do you watch NASCAR?
There was a period where I watched every single race.
Ah.
About
Hell
it was a
yeah,
long
bro.
time ago. It was a long time ago. These days,
That sounds just like Maynard's life. He
So,
stopped watching a long time ago.
Well,
So,
look, you can't watch that current product they got because this is garbage.
Actually, I want to understand why NASCAR is becoming less appealing. Seriously.
Please, Maynard will tell you all about it.
So, shower me with your knowledge
Well,
and your
all
opinion.
right. So back in the day, they had them.
When real men raced.
Exactly. Yes, sir. You could die in NASCAR, and nowadays you can't die in
You can't
NASCAR.
die. And
No,
that's it.
that's really it.
Okay.
Too
Very
safe.
simple.
So the removal
safe.
of death really
Softened
detracted
everyone.
from the product.
Oh,
Yeah, that's
I
what I'm
almost had
hearing.
a spit
And not
take.
enough renegades left in the series.
Who's left as a renegade?
Kyle.
Yeah,
Okay.
kinda. Yeah, kinda.
Yeah.
Actually, David was just telling me off air before we came on that Kyle Busch is one of his favorite drivers. He said that he is multi-talented across different disciplines.
Well,
you know,
that's a shame.
Two-time champion.
I'll tell you this.
That's not what I remember.
There's only been one driver in the past couple of years that came to my home oval track here about 15 minutes away, and that was Kyle Busch. Finished 6th, but hey, he showed up.
On a dirt track?
No, late model, super
Rental
late model,
carts?
super late model.
okay.
Yeah. He
Okay,
brought
so
the.
I won't tell you guys
the-
who my favorite driver was then.
what-
I'm going to tap out of this one.
Was it Shane Van Gisbergen?
Has Shane done NASCAR? Nick?
No, number 3, baby. Race Hell Press Down.
Juan Montoya. I don't know.
No.
No.
Jimmy Johnson.
Jack Villeneuve?
Oh, Jimmy Johnson's great. Maynard probably doesn't like Jimmy Johnson though.
Well, that's the point, yeah.
There's,
I wanted
there's
to keep-
only there's only one 7-time champion.
See.
It's Dale Earnhardt.
Okay.
Race Hell.
He's the original.
Should have had a
OG.
NASCAR quiz again
Wait.
ready.
Is he the original? I thought Richard Petty was the original with 7, no?
Well, you don't count his cheating championships.
Yeah, I'm not. We're not. We're not counting.
Now, half of them or more is be cheating, so we don't count him as 7-time champion.
Well, how do you count the championship that Dale won when Mike Skinner was on the sidelines with injury? When he
Well,
was
Dale was
leading
the
the
best,
championship.
wasn't he? He was
No.
the best.
Mike was
He
leading the
didn't need them.
championship.
He was the best that showed up and raced.
Oh, look, it's Tom fucking up OBS again. What are the odds?
Yeah, how good.
I'm here for it.
That was David's fault.
That was me. I had to reply to someone on
See?
my phone.
See?
Sorry.
Thanks for taking the fall, David. So
What
what,
a guy.
what year would you have been watching peak NASCAR?
Peak NASCAR for me?
1994.
Yeah.
No, well, the thing is, because it's where I grew up, we only got NASCAR in like the late 2010s, I suppose.
So
I
when
was
is
watching
it?
around then.
When is it that you? So you mentioned where you were. It was maybe a little bit more difficult to watch NASCAR. Where did you grow up, David?
Cape Town, South Africa.
Oh. So
Oh.
you must know Bubba Wallace.
He doesn't come from Cape Town, South Africa.
But he African American.
Yeah.
And
that's
he's
where
in
it
the
ends.
South. So he's South African American.
It
South
tracks.
African
He got you
American.
pretty good.
Well, I'm trying to mount my phone somewhere so that I
Checks out.
stop moving around.
Checks
there
out.
we go.
No, I think it's good. I think it's really
What
adding.
about this?
Maynard, I
And
think
Nick-
you've broken
It's
Nick.
now in Nick's toolbox.
Nick
Well,
is dead.
Next time.
That's what happens to Mexicans sometimes. You break them.
Oh no.
You don't want to.
Nick
but
is
it's
also
just
from the South.
what happens.
Yeah. Yeah, he knows. That's what Maynard said.
Straight
Yeah,
up.
from Mexico.
South of the border.
It's way down south. Me and
Best
Nick,
couple, baby.
we had plenty of conversation about that.
Oh my god. David, you've seen the photo of Nick wearing the big sombrero, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Nick went through a phase. He's been through a few phases, but I witnessed that one.
What phase is he in now?
The well-behaved phase.
No.
But that's
The
because he's
dad.
been
It's
living
the
in a
dad
cage.
bod phase.
That's not true.
Yeah,
Well,
he's
I
been
mean,
living in a cage for the last couple of months because of quarantine.
you know,
But when you let him out for too long, and his girlfriend doesn't keep him in check, it gets pretty wild. That's when the handlebars start to grow out and all that shit.
well, he doesn't allow
He
us to
shaves
vibe
down the
check him,
middle.
so he can only
David,
do vibe
you
check.
you of course know the ever famous picture of Nicholas standing on a cliff with a Dale hat and the Stetson. My handiwork.
Yeah, that was one of his finest moments. It's
I
been downhill
thought so
since then,
too.
by the way.
Well, the following day was the Coda 24-hour, which I mean we know how that ended. So I would agree with you.
What time did he go to sleep? Did he sleep that night? Before
More or less.
I mean, the man's he can hear you.
He's right next to me. You want to know where he is? I'll show you. Ladies and gentlemen. He's behind those screens.
What a cave!
We're really,
Jesus.
We're breaking the fourth wall.
I mean,
the third wall.
yeah,
Which
we're breaking
wall
the
is
fourth
it?
wall. So look at this, guys. I mean, he's kitted out. It's got the
Yeah, it
PlayStation
really
5
is.
there. It's got a spare screen. He's got a 3D printer for fucking God knows what.
He disgusts me.
It's got his electric scooter up there.
Yeah, I mean, that's for mobility, and with those triples, you don't need mobility anymore. The mobility comes to you, bro.
Yeah, check that pedal set though. That's out of control.
Exactly.
Out of control.
And have we talked about the wheel yet? I mean, we haven't even talked about the wheel yet.
Yeah, Nick, let's do a wheel
Oh, the wheel's
review.
coming. Okay, so there we go.
Wow.
I mean, the pedal set was the first thing he invested in. And then if we sneak up over here, the big reveal of the wheel.
Is that a precision
This
sim
thing-
engineering GPX?
Yes. When you pull on this trigger here, your fucking fillings fall out, I'm telling you.
Yeah, it's very
It's
clacky.
super intense.
What feels better, the paddles on that or the paddles on the 488?
I would say that the paddles on this feel better.
There you go.
Heard it here
Mar-
first, ladies and gentlemen.
Marinello, call you boy.
Probably costs the same though as the whole car. You know.
No, the 488 wheel is 15,000 euros.
That's it. That's fine.
So for reference, Nick's current wheel costs about 3 times as much as my first car.
And my current car.
Yeah. Nick's wheel cost about 3,000 euros, so it's 5 times cheaper than a 488 wheel. So
That's
So by comparison, absolute bargain.
Yeah.
exactly, it's
Deal of the
basically
century.
for free, as my brother would say.
Yeah, I mean,
Basically.
You
hard to
know,
argue.
all these race drivers, I tell you what. It's actually
I don't roll like Nick though. I got a Thrustmaster wheel,
really.
though
Which
from
Which one?
the TGT, which is actually well suited for Gran Turismo Sport, but also is PC compatible. So that's what I use.
See, you hear that, Tom? He can beat you on a Thrustmaster. You don't need to upgrade.
Tons of people can beat me on tons of things, Nick. It doesn't matter.
The
Well,
second, the second best sound in the world to that is Tom's soul breaking.
You have to be on iRacing for that to hear that though. So
Well, Tom, if you're looking for someone to beat in iRacing, you can just invite me to a race, and you'll probably lap me.
okay.
So-
Okay.
There's still time to fix that, David. We
No,
can
I've given up
we can
hope.
set you on your path.
No, I've given up hope.
Manny's opening up a website, Coach Manny, for iRacing, so he can help.
Yeah. I'm beyond help. The other day, I was like, you know what? I'm going to give this a proper try. I'm going to spend the whole day in the P2. I forgot which track I went to, and I think I could string 2 laps together, and those 2 laps were like 10 seconds off the pace. The rest of the time, I was just pirouetting.
So what? Hey, I almost hate to go back into seriousness here, but what's so different
do
about
that.
it for you?
To me, there's just no feeling in that game.
In what you're getting back from the
Wait,
wheel, or what?
Game?
Yeah,
What game?
No, he knew what he said. He called it a game on purpose.
They're all games. No,
Oh,
I just,
God. Cut the mic. Cut the mic.
guys, they're all games. No, I had-
Triggered.
That
Who's
sound
thinking? Which one is
that
it?
sound you just heard was Tom's soul breaking again for the second time in 3 minutes.
Honestly, I like the. I mean, yeah, guys, I don't know where to start with my love and passion for iRacing. I just, I can't. I don't
it
think we have
sounds like
enough time in this
we
podcast
should,
to shower enough praise on it.
Nick, we're gonna
But
have to bring on Zockling as a bonus guest next time we have David on.
To talk about iRacing?
Yeah.
Well-
We'd have to mute his microphone, wouldn't we?
Well, I actually, it is sort of, it is kind of interesting because being a layman who's never driven a real car in anger,
Yes.
How I describe
Or an iRacing one.
How I
Continue.
Not even your like soccer mum van that you drive the kids to work in.
No, I've
While
flung
discussing lizard anatomy.
I've we can't talk about this here. But
iRace.
really, I've tried a few sims now, and I, at least like in my hands, I feel like I feel the most in iRacing. But it could be because it's feeding back certain things that wouldn't be in a real car. I mean, I don't know how to describe it, but I actually
Well-
I feel like how you described iRacing is how I feel about a lot of other sims.
Yeah. So if you guys want, we can start to go down this rabbit hole.
Let's do it. Let's do it. I
Alrighty.
put my boots
Okay.
on.
Oh
Let's
my
go.
God.
Like, okay. What I've learned,
Better have another
having
beer, guys.
been involved with the sim racing malarkey for many decades now, is that the sim that you tend to grow up on, you sort of develop like a muscle memory and nuances and almost reactions and a feeling for how the car moves, which gets installed in like some system in your body subconsciously, which you don't even know. But now you've got like this iRacing OS, let's say. And no matter which sim you cross over to, there's such a steep learning curve to first sort of forget what you would expect from the car or how that car will behave based on your muscle memory that you've developed from, let's just in this case use iRacing as an example. I haven't seen any sim racer or real racing driver who's been a massive iRacing fan cross over to, let's just say for this case, ACC and go, wow, this feels amazing. It's always, this feels horrific. And it's the same when ACC players cross over to iRacing or R Factor 2. It's the same thing. They're like, what's wrong with the braking here? I can't feel the car at slow speed. I just think that we tend to take for granted how much of the sensations that we interpret are assumptions, okay, based on our muscle memory that we've just spent so much time in a certain game. I've never developed that feeling for iRacing that a lot of my friends claim to have. To me, it feels completely remote and numb. And
Right.
honestly, for me, and you know, it's actually the same in ACC to some extent, except for the front engine cars. But I've never felt a car move around and slide so much as I have in iRacing. I haven't felt that in real life ever. And to me, it's, if you look at any outlap of any person who plays iRacing, at least 1 in 10 times they're spinning somewhere on that outlap.
That's fair.
And you don't see that in real life, even with bad drivers.
I don't know.
to me,
Mahavir in
approach
F2.
Yeah, sure. Okay, but you've given me one example. I can give you hundreds of iRacing examples. The thing that iRacing I think has taken is that they say, okay, driving a car is hard, and therefore this game should be very hard. But Nick, don't deny this, but driving a car in real life, especially on hot tires, is not that hard. Like, of course, to get within 5 seconds, let's say, is very difficult. But to get up to 5 seconds, I mean, we've coached some billies, some pretty bad drivers who've gotten to that level.
Nick's got me to almost 3K road rating, so it's proof that with enough time in something, anything is possible.
Dave put a lot of effort into me just to get me to a level where I'm, capable of staying on the track.
That's not true.
No,
Nick has great feel, honestly. If I'm going to blow smoke up his ass, he has got great feel.
Aww.
So what you're saying is that there's probably a lot more difference in sensation from sim to sim versus anything that you could transition from in a real car. Like even if you had been running Perel in the GT3 for, I don't know, seasons worth, and then you moved series, running a different tire, say in a different car. That sensation you think would still be closer or less needing to relearn, as ever you could move from sim to sim. Sure. Yes, I mean that makes sense.
Do you know the biggest thing that I've seen when people switch between sims is the first thing that they complain about, and it happens no matter whether it's from ACC to iRacing, from iRacing to R Factor, from R Factor to it doesn't matter. It's always the braking that people is the first thing that people complain about when they switch from their diehard sim to a new sim. The car won't stop, and that's when I started to pay attention to why does everyone say that? Because if you're used to all three of them, the car definitely does stop.
Yes.
But it seems like that is one of the first things where there's a different. There's definitely in iRacing you can't just slam the brakes. No ways. That thing, especially in the Ferrari GT3, that thing's going to spin.
You're going to
around.
die, 100%.
Yeah, that thing's going to do 180 so quickly. Whereas in ACC, it doesn't spin, but the car will not feel like it's slowing down until you get used to the game. In iRacing, at least it feels like it's slowing down, but then there's this weird locking thing that happens at the final phase of braking. Trust me, that does not exist in real life. Usually in real life, you'd lock the fronts and just keep going straight if you're going to lock something.
Right.
Whereas in ACC, they've tried to interpret what ABS feels like. And I would say that the assumptions are 80% there, but
there's a lot of nuance in that 20%.
Yes, and in an ABS car, the effect of your trail braking, in my experience at least, is actually more detailed than a non-ABS car. A non-ABS car, you still have to trail brake and have incredible finesse and feeling, but it's like a non-linear thing. If you look at the brake trace of a non-ABS car and you look at the brake trace of a pro, it's not like a steep peak and then a straight line down to zero. There's points in the trail where they're going back on the brakes, coming back off, and almost managing the locking themselves. Whereas with an ABS car, the more linear you are on the way down, the better the car's going to stop, as you're just trying to sneak under the ABS. As soon as you get back into the ABS, especially like in a slow corner, when that thing fires, that's it. You're understeering off the track. And that's where ACC has exaggerated too much. Sometimes the ABS stays engaged, if you will, way too long, where you go past the corner because they're simulating when the pedal, if you brake in your road car too hard, the pedal comes back at you, and you can't feel that in a sim. I haven't driven even the $1 million sims don't have that feeling where the pedal wants to kick back at you. And it looks like ACC exaggerate that feeling a bit too much.
So it's interesting you go into the difference between sims because, so from a layman's perspective, Tom, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is really the only sim you've poured time into, right? iRacing?
What's that?
Is that fair to say?
Sorry, what's that?
This is the only sim you've
Wow.
really poured time
That was
into,
a lot
right?
of information that poor Dave just poured his heart into, and you weren't even fucking listening.
I was listening. I was listening to Dave. I just shut off when Manny started talking. Well, let's see. I probably only have like 10 hours in race room and 15 in R2 maybe.
You could have just said yes and saved us the hassle, but thank you.
No problem.
So, for reference, as a layman, I was a bit of a controller bandit on Gran Turismo before getting into iRacing. And I was actually of the controller users for like GT Sport in like season 1 of the World Championship. I was, I think, top 5 controller users for the season that I went like full sweat. And when I realized that it wasn't going to happen without getting a wheel, I was like, well,
yes,
that's my life wasted. And that's kind of when I started getting into iRacing. But I guess from a layman's perspective, with a decent amount of time in Gran Turismo, Forza, and iRacing, and a bit of ACC as well, I'd say that for the everyday person who strictly races on consoles, I think that Gran Turismo of the console ones best replicates the sense of weight transfer that I feel in a car, and then Forza on the controller has probably the best feeling brakes. Like when you're pulling the trigger to slow down in Forza, you can feel exactly where the car is going to start locking
up. The bite points,
that's
interesting.
It's really cool, but I fucking hate driving on Forza besides that. So it's really a shame that they've gone through the effort of making that bite point feel really tactile, and then you have the rest of the game, and you're like,
then
oh.
the rest is going wrong. Yeah, I have a very unpopular opinion that, well, I'm probably the only pro racing driver who thinks that Gran Turismo did a good job. But the fundamental thing about Gran Turismo with the wheel, GT Sports on PlayStation and 4,
Yeah.
is that people are like, oh, but it's such an unrealistic simulator, and fine, let's call it a simcade. I'm totally fine with that.
Yeah, that's fine.
But to me, my argument about games like Gran Turismo, and this is actually, by the way, this applies to almost every sim, is that it gets the basics right. The car understeers when it should, and it oversteers when it should. Sure, you can argue about traction and the way it spins at certain points.
You're not going to hop off Gran Turismo and hop into a GT3 car and be on pace. That's never going to happen on any sim.
No, but to be honest with you, if you came from, okay, again, this is just my opinion, but if you came from iRacing, you jump straight into a GT3 car with ABS, the first push lap, you're probably going to miss T1 because of the way that you have to brake in iRacing, which is very delicate and whoa, feel the car, feel the rear. Whereas in a GT3 car, you have to push the pedal through the firewall to get it to stop and then start to trail off. And you would definitely, when you push that pedal for the first time with that kind of force, and you just came from iRacing, you'd think that you're spinning out, 100%. 100%. But they all have these little nuances which are frustrating, which don't translate to real life. And that's why you get these massive disparities in lap time, for example. So that's another thing when people ask me, well, I want to know what lap times you're doing in real life so I can see if I can do them in the sim. If you just put the fear factor aside, just put that aside.
Of course. Which is huge.
It is huge, but only initially, I think. I really think that a pro racing driver, and there's many. There's if you look in Blancpain or what's called now GT World Challenge, is how many, dude? At Spa, there's 60 cars, 3 drivers minimum per car, 180 drivers, of which 120 are earning money that weekend. They're not scared of Spa or Eau Rouge. The humans learn how to adapt and manage all levels of fear. If you put someone from 200 years ago in your car and you just did 60 miles per hour, they would absolutely shit their pants. But for you feel like you're going slowly. It's because we always adapt to that sort of thing which is creating a threat to our lives. If we expose to it enough, it becomes normal.
All right, well, you just touched on it then. Sorry. Shut up, Manny. You talk too much anyway. You touched on it then about drivers coming across the pond from gaming to what they would feel in real life. What's your feeling on sim races to real race cars? And I know you know a few guys who have made that transition this year, but in the history of, let's say, programs that have lived throughout the world,
GT Academy probably being the best known of them.
It's only a handful of quite a lot of guys that have come through that have made it work or made it stick. So what's your feelings on it? I mean, you don't need to, everyone has an opinion, but it's not so much that. What's your feeling? Why hasn't it worked? Why is it working for some guys? You probably know quite a lot of these guys and know the nuances more than anybody between the two, having sort of had that background yourself as well.
Nick, are you talking to me or to Manny?
No, you.
Manny doesn't know shit. Why would he ask him?
Yeah, fuck
you, Tom.
The guy that hasn't even, he's been on the service for 10 years and hasn't cracked 3K. Fuck me.
Okay, so my story was I did karting and then I had to stop to try and make money to come back to real racing. So during that time, which was a 7-year gap, I was just trying to save as much money as I could. And I'm not joking, I was using Gran Turismo 4 or 5 to try stay sharp during the time. And I actually took part in the GT Academy in 2010. And for me, it helped a lot. But again, there was some nuances that I had to figure out. The reason why I don't think when the sim races cross over, because Gran Turismo did bring a lot of sim races over, but only 3 or 4 actually made it. I think if you look at that ratio, I think it would be the same if you looked at the ratio of karters who become circuit racers. There's just a massive cultural issue as well, trying to understand the culture of racing, which Nick, it's pretty brutal because it's not a meritocracy. It's very much who you know, how you behave outside of the racing car, which defines you as becoming a professional. And a lot of people aren't able to, first of all, they can't make that connection. And for those who do eventually make the connection, a large percentage don't kind of accept it, that it's not about your speed. But I think that if you do have good feeling in a sim, there's a very good chance you're going to have a good feeling in real life. It's often not down though to your ultimate speed or lap time. It's like how you behave under pressure. You can't crash when you're trying to become a pro. Crashing is not an option if you don't have a big sponsor or you're paying for it yourself, or if a gentleman driver is kind enough to cover a portion of your budget. After the second crash, you're out. So you have to learn how to drive to a certain margin, which is, if you're not taught that, or if you just come from sim racing where, there's a restart button, that, you won't last very long. And I've seen, when I got into GT3s in 2016, there was the GT Academy was still running, and they still had sim racers coming over, and too many of them were crashing, that's for sure. So that's why you only have Jan Mardenborough, Lucas Ordonez, and there was a
Ordonez actually ended up with a podium at Le Mans, didn't he? In the PTU.
Yep.
Ordonez is a seriously, he is bloody good. Same with Jan Mardenborough. Maybe they're not the ultimate exceptional example.
Jan's still
of a
racing in
driver.
Super GT, I think, right?
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
That's
you
brilliant.
can ask Nick to race at GT500s. That's no joke. Super Formula as well. To get to that level, you can't suck. I'm sorry. There's just no ways. And for sure, in the case of Jan, he had the connection of Nissan behind him through GT Academy. It doesn't matter. Nissan have had many drivers in their pool which they could have chosen. They chose some guy from Britain who'd played PlayStation his whole life.
Absolutely.
The reason why not many sim racers go on to become pro racing drivers is because not many amateurs go on to become pro racing drivers in the first place. It's just a question of, the averages and the numbers. But can a sim racer be quick in a racing car, a real racing car? Absolutely. We've seen it so many times. But the more time I spend in racing, the more I'm starting to recognize that being fast in a racing car is not the unique thing. There's so many people who this year alone just got, won races and got pole positions and think they're driving God now. And it's like, well, cool, join the queue, Ask the trophy manufacturers how many of these trophies they have to make each year. They don't get sent back, that's for sure. So
no, and to your point, it's kind of interesting to think about some of the just thinking on F1 in particular, for example, some of the fastest, I would argue, some of the fastest drivers in the world who've come through in the last decade: Sutil, Paul di Resta, Kobayashi, and now Sergio, depending on how his seat situation pans out this year. Speed is not the only factor by any means, as you've so elegantly pointed out.
When you do a GT World Challenge race, if you do the race at Spa, or if you watch GT Masters, the top 30 are within like half a second of each other. It's ridiculous. Yeah. Half a second is nothing.
Yeah.
It's nothing. And it just so happens
That's two bad corner exits.
Yeah. It just so happens to be that on that particular weekend, you were half a second off. But if you had that same race the following weekend, instead of being 42nd, you'd probably be 12th. It really is like, if you don't get the Perel tire in its window because the team didn't cook the tire correctly, or they went with slightly lower pressures, but the qualifying was delayed 5 minutes and it's now darker and a little bit colder, that will cost you positions as well. I don't know how else to explain it to people who don't get it, but I always have to explain this to sim racing drivers who are hot lapping specialists, and they do this phenomenal lap time around one track with a billion, trillion, zillion attempts, at the perfect
right.
racing line and a perfect sense of timing. I think that is one factor in real life that we see more, is that if you've come from sim racing and you're used to getting a billion tries, real racing, that doesn't happen. This year at Spa, the first time I drove the car, in the Spa 24 Hour was at night in the wet quali. That was the first time the whole week, because it just so
And
happened
watching
that
that quali, it was sketchy.
yeah. And by the way, we had to relearn a track which didn't exist before because they opened up the track limits. So it became this really weird dynamic. It was still cool. It was a cool experience to just dive straight into quali at night at Spa, where you don't have an excuse. You have 3 laps to just, or 4 laps to do what you can. But that doesn't happen in sim racing. I run a sim racing company, and one of our websites is league racing. And if the practice server is not set to the same conditions as the race server, they lose their mind. They lose their fucking mind.
Well, that's
we've
actually...
had people leave the community because it's like, you had so much rain in the practice server, and now in the race it's not raining once. It's like, well, yeah,
That's racing, bud.
Yeah, we said it that way. This is unacceptable. I spent my whole week practicing. Adaptability is a key factor in becoming a successful racing
Absolutely.
driver.
There you go, Tom. That's directed straight at you. Oh, I'm doing a mad setup for my 10K race today, and yesterday they said it's baseline setup, and they fucked me because I was flying on my open setup, and I was so fast,
They
and
got
now
me
I
good.
qualified 10th because I put 70 hours into my fucking setup.
That did happen. But,
that was Tom yesterday, 100%.
I want it to be known that never did I complain about it publicly, although I did absolutely.
Well, this is public now, boy.
Absolutely complained about it.
We were in the rabbit hole, and Nick pulled us
and Maddie.
straight back out.
It's I mean, it's just like, it's one of those things. It's going to help some guys hurt others. But I think the point that you brought up, David, at least when I think about it, when I think about someone who could, anyone who could possibly move from sim to real life racing, it seems like the guys who really excel at like a LAN event, because it almost seems closer to something where you'd get at like an actual race weekend, because they go somewhere,
Mhm.
they have new equipment,
You go somewhere,
they don't know what they're going to get. I mean,
Yes.
that kind of skill seems like a transferable skill. But however, even
is, yeah.
even what I'm doing working full time, the amount of practice time that I do, and
To
I'm not,
finish 23rd.
and I'm not a professional sim racer, so like my time
Mm.
is much limited compared to those guys. But even my time
Yeah,
is many times more than you'd get at any real race weekend. I mean, many
Yeah.
times more. I think it's good. And two, second factoid here, guys. One of the winners of GT Academy actually grew up in my hometown of Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin.
Which one? Brian?
Which one?
Nick Hammond.
Oh, yep. I remember him.
Yep.
I know Brian. I don't know Nick, though. But there's another Nick that won from America, right? Who are the 3 guys from America who won?
Nick Hammond, Nick McMillan, Steve
Nick McMillan, I know
Doherty,
him,
and
yes.
Brian.
Yeah, Nick McMillan is who I was thinking of, who I think might have been the year that Barrett made the finals. One of the drivers on our team actually made the GT Academy finals sometime back in the early 2010s. Made it all the way to Silverstone.
In the 20, I think it was the 2010 one that I took part in. That you had to do hot laps around Indianapolis in a Nissan 350Z road
Yep,
car.
I remember that one. And
Yeah.
and they released a special demo for it because the full game
Yes.
wasn't out yet. Yep, I
Yes.
remember that one.
And I think there was 1 million people who took part, and I finished 4th
I made it
on
to
the leaderboards. And
somewhere
I
in the
wasn't
300s,
invited.
I think. Yeah, I made it
I
to somewhere in the 300s, I think.
I wasn't invited because I came from South Africa. So we weren't an eligible nation. And that's actually what lit the fire under my ass, because 2 years before that, I'd stopped the karting thing. And I was like, oh, okay, it's fine. But I figured, if I can finish even in if I can finish in the top 10, even if it's 100,000 people, maybe I can still be a racing driver. So I'll give it one more shot when I can.
It's less of a point one way or the other, really. But I do think we talk about different sims, guys not being able to transition from sim to sim. This is I don't know if everyone knows this, but the big NASCAR Heat League, there's a big pro league. It's I don't know, a lot of cash. I don't think it's quite as much as the iRacing Coke Series, but any of the Coke drivers on iRacing are actually banned from trying to qualify for the Heat League.
Really?
Yeah,
Why is that?
I think they just don't want them in both.
But
But you can go the other way. You
Yes.
can go the other way though. So a Heat driver is
Okay.
allowed in.
Can
the
go to
iRacing.
Oh.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
Okay, that is interesting.
It's
So-
getting more and more like that, though. I think that's going to become more common, by the way, as these prize pools become bigger and bigger and the stakes get higher and higher. Because that's actually, to me, a prime thing that's missing from sim racing, which raises the game in real life. In real life, we have much more at stake. The fear of crashing the car and injuring yourself is not as great as the fear of crashing the car and losing your job.
Yes.
Nick, am I right or wrong?
Uh,
Dude, you're not afraid of hurting yourself. I've seen you climb mountains and shit.
yeah, no, I race to win. If that means hitting someone or something, then sometimes it happens.
Yeah. But-
Ask me about it every fucking time we're at Talladega. There's me in the wall.
Yeah,
oh,
yeah,
Nick
yeah,
wins.
yeah. But
What are
the-
the odds?
but Nick,
I
there
tell
must
you
be-
time and time again, if it's between me and the checkered flag and it's you, you're gone. Forget about it. And you know what? I'm happily do it to you, which means I'm happy to do it to the bloke next door to me that I don't know.
So
This is
that's
true.
a big
You
difference in
you semi-like
sim
me,
racing to real
so.
racing. Yeah. The reason they call me Dirty Dave is because I was taking my real racing habits and bringing them to sim racing. And they're like, you can't fucking race at this. I was like, what do you mean if there is a gap that is half a car width?
my car is
wide,
going there. Like,
that
let me be
means
very
I could
clear.
maybe fit. Of course. What are you doing leaving a freaking half car width open for? In real racing, of course we go for that gap.
I've heard that
It's
before.
It's funny.
Yeah.
Real
There was actually a situation today in the Corvette Championship that Tom mentioned, where they were racing for the equivalent of $10,000. That the gentleman who led almost the entire race through what ended up being basically a late half block, where he didn't commit to the block early, and by the time he'd committed, the other guy was already inside.
Mhm.
And it's like, I mean, if you wanted to close the door, you should have closed the door.
Should have
There's
done it
no,
properly.
yeah.
I mean,
and
I
that's
understand
that's
why.
a big thing that Nick has yelled at me for over and over again. I think
Yeah,
the
you got to
time
commit.
the
Don't
time that
hesitate.
snapped him, I was racing TCRs at Lime Rock, ironically, and I threw a late block into turn one where I was like half like straddling the middle but not really defending,
Mhm.
and then I turned in. The guy's already there. I sent him to the Shadow Realm, and
Nick
Nick
lost his
just
shit.
yelled at me for like 10 minutes for being an absolute spud.
Uh,
But look,
speaking of spuds, Maynard, you ever tried to qualify for the Heat League?
Yeah, made
Well-
out to Crossman truck. I want to see it.
I actually was just about to butt in here. Since we talking about NASCAR sims now,
Yeah.
I want
What are
to
you
ask
laughing at,
that.
David?
I want to ask that our African guest here. Have you ever played the best NASCAR sim? I bet he ain't.
Is this the one at the arcades?
I bet it's. I bet it's not.
It ain't in no arcade. It's in my living room right here. But
Oh,
I don't know if it's been an arcade.
Is it-
Anyway, listen
No, I
here.
haven't.
Listen here. NASCAR Thunder 2002.
Oh,
2003
that
was
was on
better,
PC,
bro.
yes.
Um,
No, 2002. I remember.
I played it on my PlayStation 2.
With-
But look here. 2002 was the best because the theme song was Leonard Skinner. That's how you know it's a good sim.
You know, Leonard Skinner was actually from my hometown. He grew up like 15 minutes from where I lived.
If
Jeez, a lot of
if
guys grew up in your hometown. Was it Nick, the Gran Turismo guy, Leonard Skinner? What else, Manny?
that was
If-
my hometown.
I
Listen
race
to
it.
me.
That was Tom. It was the other
Oh,
white guy,
Tom.
not me.
iRacing had Leonard Skinner, iRacing would be the best NASCAR sim.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay, I could see it, Maynard. I'm
I
kind of.
want to know when iRacing is going to upgrade its graphics, its interface.
Oh my god.
I will say, if you try to, well, Nick doesn't have a good enough graphics card yet until he gets his 3090. But once you see it with HDR and all the bells and whistles on, it looks quite nice.
Mm-hmm. For a 2007 game?
Not like 2016. Let's
I-
be kind.
I actually don't think.
Okay.
I don't think it looks half bad. I don't know. It's not F1 2020, but it's not bad.
Oof. No,
But you
that is
also
a
don't
simulator.
drive through the gross to go faster.
Yes.
No, you do
Cut-
that in
cut the final
iRacing.
chicane, it's-
You do that in
That's
iRacing. You
also
gotta cool the tires, man.
Oh, you gotta cool the tires.
Well, they fixed that now, but I remember for a while there was a thing that the Coke drivers would do where they would, for their Q lap, they would like try to go through some part of grass somewhere to, because they want
You're
the
joking.
they want the core really hot, the tire, but they want
Yes,
they
but
want
not
the
the
carcass
surface.
or they want the carcass
Yeah.
hot, but the surface cold. So
Yeah.
they try to cool it somehow. And they put a stop to that, and then they fixed it too. So it doesn't work that way anymore. But I remember they at one point they like would like act like they like slid and went through the grass. Yeah, it was a thing that happened.
Genius.
Well,
But that's,
actually,
that's the thing. It's like, every sim has its flaws like that. So when people used to give me hell for even, how dare I even turn on my stream with Gran Turismo on the screen, I was like, well, all of the sims get something wrong. There's an
Yeah.
exploit in all of them. The whole point of sim racing is to find those exploits and like maximize them as much as possible. Doesn't matter which sim you're playing.
well, that's
To be
actually.
fair,
You could say
have
a lot for
overheating-
real racing.
Go ahead, Nick. Sorry. I'm sorry, man. He's talking over you, Nick. He's such an
It's
ass.
unbelievable. I usually don't have much to say, and then really when I've got some insight, you go, fucking just talk over the top of me. Not only is this
Tough
shit
out there.
unprofessional, I only have to deal with you fucking idiots as well.
Nick, if you want, you can go back upstairs. You can turn on the card.
Yeah, leave us, David. We already got the talented half of your house. So
Nick, what were you saying, bro?
No, I was actually going to say about tires, like what you were talking about with the Coke stuff. Like it's the same shit happens in real life when you're on a wet tire and the track's drying, driving the grass to keep it cool so you don't blow the thing up.
Well,
Well, that's it, because Nick's looking for the water in the grass.
well,
No,
well,
seriously.
Zanvort, Nick, you were like way in the water, like when the
Zanvort, I
track was
was
drying,
in the
right?
grass.
Yeah.
The camera
Yeah.
doesn't catch it when you come up over the hill. But yeah, just go straight to the inside and drive on the white line through the grass to try and cool the tires because you know that if you get them over a certain pressure or temperature, that they'll explode.
Well, so it is kind of funny. I guess I have two questions. One, the first question, and maybe the longer of the two. So yeah, with IRL stuff. I mean, there's probably like weird things have been done or found to go faster. I mean, maybe not driving through the grass to cool your tires, but set up things, odd, unusual choices that might work. It just so happens that in a sim, that's like hacky because it's a game and we're like breaking it. And
Yeah,
I understand
I
there's
think-
like limits, but I think a lot of times.
I think on games like things are a lot more exploited because the physics are very set. So if you find like
Yeah.
one or two, like a it might not be one thing,
cases,
it might be a combination of like one or two things that just really work. In motorsport to an extent, like everyone's doing the same shit to try and make the car go faster, and the theory is there for everyone, and maybe people apply it differently. Like there's no two ways, there's no one way to skin a cat. But people go about it differently, and then it works for people in a different way depending on track conditions and
Type of car and
tires
stuff.
and
Well,
type
the
of car. Blah,
the
blah, blah.
sim too, they have a million laps to try whatever stupid thing
Yeah.
they want.
Exactly.
Exactly.
I think my favorite sim exploit of all time has to be from the Coke series this year, the Daytona setup, where it was the Carolina Lean setup, where you had the rear slammed and the nose in the air because iRacing doesn't account for front drag resistance.
Oh,
Well,
really? I found one in ACC.
Dale had that
Where-
set up in real life. I'm dead serious.
In ACC.
That actually is a thing that set up, that really happened actually in NASCAR. If you look at like a qualifying, there's a qualifying video. I don't remember the year, but
they slammed the rear and raised the
their
front.
was all popped up. Yeah.
In ACC, I found an exploited Spa in the Ferrari where if you ran the ride height like square, let's just say 55 front and rear,
Hang on, let me take some notes.
the less wing that you ran, the faster the faster you'd go in the corners. which you have now fixed because obviously I told
So
you about it, but
you would reduce downforce to corner.
I ran
faster.
0 wing. And the beauty was my competitors were asking me like, "Oh, can I use your setup?" I'd be like, "Yeah, sure, here it is." And they'd immediately look at the setup and they'd see the wing was on 1 or 0. They're like, "This, like, no,
It's a
give us the
meme
actual
setup, yeah. Like,
I was
you're
like, "No,
full of
no,
shit.
this is it." And it's calling bullshit. In real life, though, I would say the only thing which is like still very much like a black art, because keep in mind we have tons of data, and let's say if you race for Mercedes send data engineers who have collected the data from all the cars and pretty much know what setup to run. But what you can still find something in is in the tires, and how hot to cook them, how long to cook them for, how to position them in the tire oven. Do you stack them on top of each other? Do you lay them across? And then the pressures you run relative to how you bake them, how you do the outlap. Those things are still pretty secretive.
So when it comes to tire science, Betty Crocker is more useful than engineering school.
Black arts.
It's I often wondered, Nick, this is no joke. I often wonder what the tire engineers from Michelin, Pirelli, Goodyear, and stuff are doing at the racetrack. Because the thing they tell all of us all the time, they're listening to you, they're listening to the feedback. Yes. Okay, what tire pressures are you running? Okay, yes. And your camber? Okay. So what you need to do is reduce the camber and up the pressures.
That's pretty standard. Yeah.
Standard. But what? We had one guy who used to work at Ferrari. Nick, Matteo.
Yeah.
And he moved to Pirelli, and he moved from Ferrari because he was bored. I was like, dude, are you crazy?
Yeah.
And 2 years down the line, he's like, I'm committing suicide. It's so boring because same thing. They listen. Okay. Yeah. It sounds like what you need to do is you need to reduce the camber and up the pressure.
Does GT3 have a max camber?
Yeah.
Not necessarily, but there's like guidelines.
Yeah. But there are like some series that have max camber. Like F1 has max camber, right? They have a hard limit.
Kind of. The thing is, like, we all know, for example, let's just say, like the Goodyear in ELMS, you shouldn't run over 3.6 camber, negative 3.6 at the front.
Just because it'll disintegrate?
It literally does, yeah. On a long stint, we've had numerous tire failures this year, but in qualifying, we jack it way over. We go closer to negative 4. But we know we just use it for 2 laps. And then, yeah.
But on that, it depends on the compound as well, because we do it in the prototype, and depending on what type of tire you run, like what compound, you can tear the surface. So you get, if you do a quality run and say you're only planning on doing 2 laps, or the tire compound is soft or it's a little bit hotter than it's meant to be because the compounds work in different temperature windows for track temperature. If you run like 1 extra lap because you got an off track or blah blah blah, whatever, something like that, then you run that tire in the race, you tend to have like blisters that are actually more like holes that just start like a whole chunk of rubber will just fall off, and you'll have like literally a hole in the base of the tire, and then the carcass basically explodes from the inside out like a hernia. Like the bubble just comes up and bang, you blow the tire, and it's just from purely overheating from too low tire pressure, too much camber, or too much toe.
It's interesting that you bring that up, because I know that in iRacing real recently you can now have a tire failure if you run it too long. I've
never
with
seen
too
one,
much.
but yes,
I've seen it.
It tends to be like that's a percentage thing, right? So
pretty much, yeah.
Like
literally, it's like almost linear.
You get to a percentage and then it'll go bang.
Right, but
you
can't
quadruple a
stint.
stint.
But I wonder if they're considering. I wonder if they're considering, eventually, expanding that to, because I think really, like, you see it a ton in NASCAR where they push the camber limits, because how many tire failures they have in NASCAR all the time. And so people say that that's like a big thing that's missing from the sim right now. Although I do wonder if like the main
it becomes so random and people would rage.
Well, that's kind of thing. I don't know if it's good for the majority of any user base in a sim to have to know when the tire, like how far can you push a tire? Because that'd be very frustrating for a huge majority of the people.
Well, I mean, I think
sim racing
like, sim racing's done. I think like particularly we're based in the iRacing world, so ACC I can't comment on too much other than.
No, we're switching, Nick. We're moving.
Big events.
I don't know if you listened to the intro.
Going to
Yeah,
God's
we're moving.
tire.
Okay, we're
Model.
God's
Yeah,
time now.
he's got it.
But like, if you set up the car like really aggressively, then you have a lot of tire wear, and then you have to pit, like for instance, like some of the stuff that we've done recently in the prototype, like we're able to double or triple where some people can only single because of the way cars set up. I mean, that's sort of halfway there. Taking the next step's not a massive jump, but to kind of calculate that, can you imagine what it's like to calculate tire deg? Let
Just to
alone
start with, yeah.
just to say, oh, okay, well, now we got tire deg, but just throw in a random failure just because you can. Yeah, go on, Tom. Why don't you do it?
And essentially, that's what's happening in real life, because sometimes it can feel random. This year, Goodyear really struggled in ELMS at resurfaced racetracks because the grip levels were just so high. This tire wasn't developed during those times. This tire was developed during the times when racetracks weren't being resurfaced. 2 years ago, let's say, for example, it was just Paul Ricard that would get a resurface, and you only have one high-speed turn there. But
So
this
what
year,
was the steel band failing each time because it was pulling too
no,
much?
it's kind of like the join between the surface and the sidewall that starts to tear slowly but surely,
Okay.
and then the surface starts to peel away. The vibrations and stuff when it happens is unfucking believable. I wish I could explain it. And you're like, is that pickup? Is it lockups? I didn't lock up once, and you're starting to really think like, did I lock up at some point? Like, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, my
And then
tire's coming apart. That's a relief.
Yeah, the tire is just delaminating.
You definitely spun at one point though.
I did. Thanks for that, Nick. That was at final round of the championship, but we had tire failures the whole way through the championships.
That was brutal,
dude,
Nick. Fuck. The last
Ben
race, you're
Barker.
gonna point it out to him?
I know.
Oh, it was brutal.
Rough.
I haven't gotten over that.
Oh, what were you
But,
saying about Barker?
Yeah, so look, he's not here to protect his team, but I know for sure that the Michelin tire has a much wider working range on cambers and pressures and stuff. And they came from WEC for the final race of the year and ran on the Goodyears at Portimao. And every single team at Portimao had a tire failure. But it just happened that their car was getting them like, let's say we could get a tire to last for 30 laps. It was very often on like the 28th-ish lap, you'd get a tire failure. So we were pushing it 1 or 2 laps too much. But the Ben Barker car was getting tire failures like after 10 or 15 laps, because I'm pretty sure they were jacking that thing completely on the side of the tire and just could not cope. So that was a bummer.
It just goes to show, like, I think that actually ties in really well with the shit that we've been talking about in terms of like what you know, right? Whether you know ACC or iRacing, God's tire model, or the garbage that America spews out, like. But like, if you come from a championship where they use X and you roll into another one, like golf, Ben's been on pole at 2 or 3 different rounds. Like, he's rapid.
Yeah.
Like they were nearly on pole at Le Mans. Like, he was 3/10 up in pre-qualifying or final practice 3 or whatever. You know what I mean? And then they roll to different championship with a different tire with no testing. And
changes everything.
They're nowhere. Like, really, they were nowhere, and they're having tire failures. And how do you put your thumb on something that you don't understand? Like, I think that sums everything up to a T.
Yeah, and I mean, if you can imagine that, if you switch sims, you probably do it like 2 weeks in advance. And you're like, oh shit, I'm going to put the hours in here. But for example, Gulf Racing came to Portimao. They had Thursday, and then it was quali on Saturday. That's it. They probably had 2 or 3 hours on Thursday. If you take out the brake bedding process, the out laps, the in laps, 15 to 20 laps of the gathering data. There's no ways first of all, no one's going to tell them about the camber issues, and they'll listen to what Goodyear say. Goodyear will say, oh, reduce your cambers and up your pressures. They'd be like, fuck, we hear that from every single one of you. So it's very rare that you actually listen to that until you get the kind of
Except the
failures that we were
hand-cooked
getting.
guys. God bless them.
Yeah.
Plus, 4 hours. They got to give their AM driver. It's effectively pro-am racing, so you got to give your AM driver half the driving time. You take out the important stuff like data, brakes, which all your pros do. Your pros doing 15 laps, 20 laps before you roll into qualifying to learn something.
So
I'll tell you guys that.
Does that I'm just kind of curious how much of that you said that guys other people aren't gonna tell them about that. Like, oh yeah, the Goodyear, I'm wondering how much talk there is between teams and how much
Reasonable
how
amounts,
likely do they
actually.
pull like an engineer from another team?
And before you
Never.
answer that, David, are we allowed to talk shit about Goodyear in front of Maynard?
I don't know. Maynard, you tell us, bro.
Doesn't NASCAR run Goodyear?
Well, Goodyear used to be good, but nowadays I ain't so sure.
Now they're having a bad year.
Okay.
You know
That
what?
was
Here's
terrible.
the thing though. If you ever let Maynard spot for you, I've done it a couple times, right? So and this might go over David's head. I'm not sure. In the late models, in iRacing, okay, it's a D class, so there's no cautions. Okay, we're all clear. There's no cautions on the late model. It's so you never stop. But every time
Well, that ain't true.
every time Maynard spots for me, we get about halfway through the race, and
You got it,
he
Pip.
goes we gotta come in for 4 new Goodyears.
You gotta get them Goodyears.
Fresh rubber
Yes, sir.
every time.
Oh, geez.
Is that around the time of the competition caution?
If
Or
only
the,
if
or
only
the
there
end of the
was.
stage?
End of the stage,
Please,
same
let's
thing.
not talk about stages, please. I'm
So
sorry
guys,
for
how
interrupting
crazy is
you.
this? No, it's all right. When we were racing at Monza, in between when the tire came off the car in the stints in the race, we were literally taking the tire off and cutting it up and doing it like an autopsy before we prepared the next tire, so we could tell what type of pressures we should be running and stuff like that. How intense is that shit?
You have a forensic scientist on staff.
Forensics,
Yeah. So who
Forensic.
was looking at
Yes,
it and making
I'm
the
not
decision?
joking. We had a tire engineer with us, which was like,
Yeah.
okay, I need you to take off the tire. I need you to cut this part over here and this part over there. Bring it back to me, those two pieces. I need to analyze it before preparing the pressures for the next.
He's got a
Fucking
spectrometer in
mental.
the trailer. Amazing.
Jeez, it's so sick. That's cool stuff, man. That's like, yeah, I like shit like that.
I mean, that's pretty interesting.
Imagine
So
you had that in
returning
sim racing.
to your first question, Tom, which was pretty interesting.
What was it?
David,
Sorry.
how is it the tire engineer information sharing for teams that come to the grid for like golf, where they've been running another series and then they just pop in? Does no one let them know what's going to go on with the tires? It's like, you're on your own, bud. Good luck.
But like ask Tom the same question. If they weren't running their fixed setup on the weekend and he was a second clear of everyone, would he tell everyone what he's doing to win 10K?
No, I mean I wouldn't be sharing sets, depending on if I think you definitely make and it might be the same answer that you guys are about to have, but there is an
But we do
advantage.
have an interesting situation in real life.
I mean, there is an
in that-
advantage to culturing that kind of relationship. So if someone asks for information,
depends who they are.
Unselfishly, I mean, or rather selfishly, I may help out because that comes around someday. But
Comes around, yeah.
yeah.
But we have a situation in real racing where let's maybe not the top tier engineers, but at least like the guys that's below them are freelancers who bounce between the teams. And very often they take information between the teams. And it could be, let's just say, I don't know how to illustrate this example. Let's say in the case of Kessel, they will use a freelance engineer for their GT3 program, and have their regular engineers for GT3 and GTE. So when that freelance engineer is at a GT3 race, one of the GTE engineers will tell them a story about what happened at the ELMS. And then it just so happens that freelance engineer races with Porsche in GTE, and he'll carry that information along with him. So will he have context, like full context of the whole setup or what was going on? No, but he will know the story, for example, where in the case of the Ferraris, we were having left rear tire failures. And we knew that in the case of the Porsches, they were having front left tire failures. And we got that information from freelance engineers who happened to be skipping between the teams. And at another event, which was unrelated to ELMS, that story just came out. But in terms of like the actual details and how they set up the cars and all that stuff, you will never, I mean, even for Nick and I, we, depends on the engineer, but you're not going to have any context. Sometimes, for example, we'll know where the roll bars are set or what the wing is because we can see the wing adjustment, but we don't know what else is going on that creates the reason that we're running that roll bar or that wing.
It's quite common with engineers, particularly good ones, that they won't even really tell their drivers what they're running.
Yeah.
Because then the
an
driver will
idea of-
know and could do it without them. Is that the idea?
And
Or-
particularly like in our case, if they're a very good engineer and they're a manufacturer engineer or they're permanent with one team, like particularly in GT3 racing, for instance, like take me for an example, like Dave's maybe in a different situation where he sticks to Ferrari and a couple of different teams, but he's still switching between two Ferrari teams, which often race against each other.
Yeah, they don't tell me anything.
Yeah, and then think about me. I drive for different manufacturers on different weekends. So, I'm like, same as what Dave's talking about, the concept of a freelance engineer, the same concept as with a freelance driver. I can walk away from this weekend with iRacing and learn everything I need to, and then go to ACC and go, iRacing's doing all this shit. And then come back to iRacing and go, ACC's doing all this shit. You know what I mean? And it's not to say that there's a level of professionalism within the sport, which, there a lot of it is, and for sure, like I would never say anything that would hurt anything.
That
anybody.
would detriment,
Yeah,
sure.
exactly. And also put me out of a job for being a dickhead.
Exactly.
But it's not to say that it won't happen.
Yeah, like the case here is
Ferrari
like, we were having left rear tire failures, but the engineer won't say, because they were running exactly this level of camber. It's like, no, we had left rear tire failures and it was happening towards the end of the stint, and the driver's a wanker anyway because he was using too much curb. Okay, cool.
Nick.
So we know. No, but like engineers will never give us context. Like Nick and I have worked. I mean, the one team that Nick raced for, the guy wouldn't tell him anything. Nick would say, I think I need to go. I think we should be going soft on the roll bar. He'd do something completely different and wouldn't even tell Nick. He'd be like, "Yeah, we went soft on the roll bar."
That's so.
So what's
it
the?
seems very
what's the
counterproductive.
purpose?
No,
I don't understand.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, it always depends, but like,
I think it's
This
maybe
is-
more of an ego situation with something like that, or
no, I think it's a combination of things. That first of all, from the outside looking in, you hear these stories of racing drivers, like let's just say Michael Schumacher would engineer the car, or some bullshit like that. And then you think, or in the sim racing world, like you do your own setup. Yeah, sure, maybe you are given a good baseline, but you'll still make some small tweaks of what you think will work and everything. The attitude in the real racing world is like, dude, you are literally, your job is to drive. I'm the qualified engineer. I know how the car works from an engineering standpoint. Tell me what you feel, and I will know what to change. But don't tell me what you think should be changed, because you don't have the big picture, and I'm not about to tell it to you because you're going to take it to Team Z over there.
yeah, and then you're gonna
so
kick
we-
my ass with it next weekend.
Yeah, so most of the time we just simply have no context. And if you try and fight that, the engineer they won't engage you. It's very simple, especially if you're in like a 3-driver team in an endurance race. If you push too hard, it will be like, in their heads, they're like, cool, well, for the next race, I'm giving him the bed. He beds the brakes, he does 3 or 4 push laps, and then for the rest of the time, I'm putting Jason in the car, and you're screwed. Then you just sit there, you're not doing the quali, you're not doing any laps in practice. And the first time you do any proper laps is in the middle stint, which is the stint of like the slow pro, if you will.
That I always did in LMP2.
Oh,
Well, the thing is also, if you're not established in the team, like in Nick's case, he was going to someone else's team, a gold driver's team who wasn't him. You're also given that shitty role. You're never given new tires in practice. You're given a minimum amount of laps because the pro is going to do the quali sim and he's going to do the long run. You just wait for your stint. That's essentially what you do when you in that role.
Lunchtime shift.
Yeah, and that will happen if you break someone's balls in the team and they have control of the run plan, or if you're fresh in the team as well and you haven't. The hardest thing is to try and break through when you come to a new team and you're fresh, and everyone's still learning what you're about. You're never given a true opportunity to prove how quick you are. Never. because you never have the new tires or anything. So to break through from that, to say, like in Nick's case, he is quicker than Mary, you need like everything has to align where you have an amazing stint which they all
Mercury has
remember.
to be in retrograde.
It's
all
so
9
fucking
planets have to be
difficult.
lined up.
That's one of the most difficult jobs, is when you called in and you desperately like trying to make a name for yourself or something. You're like, oh yeah, cool, we need like fast silver or whatever, or backup gold. And you just know, it's like, well, how much effort am I going to put into this thing if I know for sure, first of all, the gold here is super established. He's always going to get the new tires. I'm always going to get whatever he's given me, which is usually like some flat spot, a piece of shit. And then you're going to have to go and make it rain, and then you don't match his pace, and they're like, he's really struggling, and Nick is just nowhere, or David's nowhere. It's like, well, fucking hell, yeah. You
And
gave me
it's-
100 kilograms of fuel and the use set.
When I race with Dave, I always put him in the middle of the day when it was hot, so I could drive at night. When it
Oh,
was nice
brilliant.
out.
True.
Pro
We both
move.
did a nice stint.
Pro move. That's an
That's
iRacing move if I've ever heard of it.
That is a pro gamer.
That's
move,
like for the
as we would
endurance.
say.
That's like for the endurance
Yeah.
series race. I was like, yeah, I'll take the first in. It's like Dawn. Yeah, I'll do it.
Yeah, it's Dawn 25C track temp. No sweat. All good.
I'm like half a
But
second
did-
up from everyone else. Yeah, let's
We
go. What are
did
you
give
guys doing?
Dave. We did give Dave the pro driver qualifying.
I was Q2, bro.
Oh, sorry.
No, I was Q3. You're right. And I did deliver. I'm just going to put it out there. But anyway.
Of course, you
well
got the
done.
goods, bro.
Guys, I had an experience this year, speaking of unestablished drivers, whenever we had one stand-in driver with us, and he was obviously trying to make a name for himself and everything, but every time he was in the car, my engineer would open up his emails and start checking his emails. And you'd just see, okay, he just did another lap. He'd enter in the lap time, and then he'd go back to the emails and read emails.
That's
and go,
incredible.
"Hey." He's like, what's the run plan here?
Browse
8
through
laps,
all of
okay.
his Instagram models on his phone.
And
the
then
doom
boom,
scroll.
8 laps in. Okay, box, and David's in the car. It's like, Jesus, this is brutal. Because when you are in the car and you're trying to do the job, you're like, wow, I wonder what they thought of that lap. They know that I'm on 60 liters of fuel and like fucking 200K tires. Meanwhile, the guy's checking Outlook. Jeez. It's brutal.
I mean, you get those really good, like close coupons in your email. You got to be on top of it. You get 24 hours.
Especially the Black Friday deals. Got to be ahead of that shit, man.
Is Coach Dave doing Black Friday deals? Get good
Thought
setups.
about it.
Get good coaching with your coaches.
I thought about it.
Yeah, let's
But,
put those wheels on
no.
sale, huh?
I already get for a complimentary code. Well, it's not really complimentary. There is an exchange of services there, but I already get it from one of his coaches. So I'd love to see what an actual professional would be like.
No. You get Team Foster coaching services, which are like a lot of fucks being fired in real. For Dave, I do Coach Dave like service level. It's a little bit different.
Pro level.
Good Christian content. Yeah, got
Exactly. Yeah, Christian content.
Exactly, yes.
All you have to do is watch his streams.
To be honest, though, I think that Nick, he's probably a better coach than I am. But that's why I give him most of the sessions these days anyway.
He lies.
It's true, 100%.
He knows I own H4SR, and I'll ban him from the stream, and I'll wipe him off the face of H4SR if he says bad
He'll be
things.
doing me a favor if he
It's
does
true.
that.
It's true. Nick actually does own the domain.
It's unfortunate.
Really?
Yeah.
It
H4SR
was an accident. It just kind of happened that way.
.com. Yeah.
What? Hang on a second. I need to go check this out. I'll be right
Yeah.
back.
It's here for SR.com. Oh, we've broken the stream.
Ah, got him. Oh, so good. I love it when this happens.
What happens when I exit the
All
stream?
the-
No.
Oh, it's good.
It
It's good.
all
It's so
shifts
good.
once. It all
Guys,
shifts over.
do you want the good news or the good news?
The good one. The good one.
H4SR.com, a 4-letter domain.
Ah.
No, here for SR.
Fuck that.
Tom doesn't-
I see.
No, but what he's saying, he's offering an alternative domain so we can buy our way out of
okay.
this shit contract.
Well, it's too late because I just bought it. So
Fuck.
bidding war starts now.
Ah,
bidding
Murray
war
getting
starts
What a
screwed.
disaster.
Yeah, this was horrible.
Thanks
what
for bringing me on the stream, guys.
It's been 90 minutes plus.
Tom actually wants to ask you a question. So H4SR with Maynard as our on the ground pit reporter, we're looking at getting into some commentating. I think we do quite a good job. We have a great team. We'd all obviously be suited. And
I'm
in
a
our
very
booths.
talented Ferrari GT3 driver.
Are you
Or I
guys
was
serious?
until he turned his.
Are you serious?
Yeah. So Tom was going to put a business proposal that we run a couple of the SimGrid events for you.
Fucking ace, 100%. Yes,
There you go,
I need
Maynard.
commentators all the time.
Maynard's
I'm
got his
serious.
first job. He hasn't had one in like 15
Maynard,
years.
you've
This
done
is-
some pit reporting.
It's a big
right?
day for Maynard.
Guys, but the thing is, you'd have to endure ACC, which is not such,
That's fine.
such a
No,
bad
that's
thing.
not enduring.
It's got pretty good
That's-
camera angles.
That's
Oh,
not enduring.
have we ever talked about the fact that I actually like playing ACC? I don't
What?
think I'd ever. Yeah, we've never covered this. I like it.
You don't
It's fun.
play it. You
I enjoy
drive it.
driving
Nice,
on it.
nice.
It's not something that I'm gonna pour a lot of time
It's a
into, but
sim.
I enjoy it when I get on it.
Well,
Now, Matty
when
and I
the
crack
SimGrid
in some
starts to
good
have
races.
$10,000 prize money, then maybe you should.
Yeah, Nick and I have had some cracking races on ACC on baseline on the
Hang on a
aggressive
second.
baseline.
No, wait, hang on a second. Nick Foster, did you say Nick Foster, ACC, and race in the
Yeah,
same
the
sentence?
British guy.
Yeah,
The British guy.
absolutely.
British touring
Bit-
car, BMW
Oh,
specialist.
fuck,
Yeah,
of
yeah,
course.
don't
Jeez, you got
worry.
me excited there for a second.
My
The better
grandfather,
one.
yeah.
Don't worry.
Yeah, my grandfather.
Okay, so I just want to finalize this
Business
this
deal
verbal
online.
this verbal transaction we're having. So you
we pay up commentators as well. by
you
the way.
foresee. I just want to see, like, I'm thinking, myself and Manny, the color guys, and we have Nick as
Excuse me?
Yes.
Is that a
mean,
racial comment?
the color
He's token
guy.
on a stream, but like,
Well, not anymore. We have an actual African here, so it's perfect.
You're ruining this transaction.
I feel like in like 2 years from now, I told this to Nick already, when I'm running for president of something, they're going to be like, well, we just dug this up.
the white Nelson Mandela.
Just imagine cutting away to Maynard, down, getting the hard takes from
Guys,
the
I'm not
grid.
joking. We're trying to set up an American league on the SimGrid.
Yeah, I'm not
for
joking
ACC.
either.
Right.
Why? What makes you think that we're a
And-
joke?
What?
I have no idea why I would think that at all. Guys, it's done. Please.
Honestly,
Manny,
yeah.
you wanna send me a DM.
Yeah, we'll commentate the shit out of a race. It'll be fun. And then we'll
I
give
know
you
will.
that
Oh,
one race
man.
trial period, and then you can decide if you really want to continue.
Nick's crying.
You guys have got the American track done. Nick,
Yeah.
we need something for Australia. So
what
Nick,
makes you think we're a joke?
Nick's just sitting over there in tears.
It's gonna be a good Twitch clip later. I tell you what.
Yeah, it's gonna be excellent.
I think we should go. I think we should probably end on that before we delve back into something lower. Oh, we've broken the stream again. That seems like a good time. To,
Hey!
is that
In the
that it?
chat,
I'm back.
living in the fast lane offers to commentate for free in a foreign language no one understands.
Stop undercutting us. I'm gonna ban you.
Yeah, that should be in the banned phrases, I think.
All right. I think anyone have anything else? I think we should bail.
No, I think we should
He's having a
thank
son.
David for being kind enough to come on our very shit program.
Yeah,
I enjoyed it.
I hate to oust Nick, but he does this like every week, David.
I know. But if you do need a replacement driver,
Please, anyone will do. I'll take Mike Skinner at this point.
Oh, Mike Skinner's the OG
He's very
renegade.
good. He's very good. Why are you dunking on Mike Skinner?
Yeah.
We need a replacement for Manning next week, I think. Or that.
I think we found a better token.
Brutal.
that is where we are ending this. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. Until the next one.